Hi there YouTube, welcome to my channel, welcome to my new subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please think about doing so. Please like, share, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified when I post another video. So as you can see, it's quite a beautiful day today in London. The sun is out, so I'll probably go out and get some of that vitamin D I've been talking about, right? Anyway, so what I wanted to do today was talk about some of the issues and misunderstandings that have occurred between Africans and Caribbeans, and some of it still exists to this day. And I think that is definitely an area that needs still needs a bit of development, work, knowledge, and understanding. And so let's get into it, right? So disclaimer. I think that over the last few years, there has been a move. There has definitely been a shift in terms of, bridging these people together, and they're essentially one people who were divided through slavery and colonialism, and now live in different parts of the world and have adapted different ways of life and so on and so forth. But are one people. So I think that a lot of work has been done by artists and musicians to really share the culture, share the understanding, and build those bridges and develop those bonds that are much needed across the continent. So, musicians, writers, artists, art is life, right? So at the end of the day, I think the creatives have a real part to play in that. They chronicle the history of a people. They are, they are the ones, isn't it? They're the griot of the continent, however you want to describe them, whether storytellers or griots or musicians, they all do the same thing. So good job to them for that. But I just want to look at some of the stereotypes that still persist. They're like, an itchy back foot, right? They just won't stop. So let's look at them and let's try and debunk them quickly, right? So one of the stereotypes that exist between Africans and Caribbeans is the idea that some Africans have that Caribbeans have no family values. And I say that because, again, recently I was watching Your View on TVC, and they actually, some of the ladies they made a comment, and it's not the first time they've made a comment about people who live abroad or in the West, and like, what their families are like. And at the time they were saying that at a time when a woman had been beaten half to a pulp by her husband, and I couldn't understand why, even though you're having these issues yourselves as women, you're gonna still, want to put down, another group of people living somewhere else. Let's just speak on it for a minute. So I've got, so I'm Caribbean, right? So my parents, in the sense of I'm African Caribbean, so my parents grew up in the Caribbean but had me here. So I have that particular worldview. So in all Caribbean homes that I know, and it's traditional that Caribbean parents are quite strict. They really want their children to do well. They want their children to study. They want their children to be clean. They want their children to be neat. They want their children to be manageable. In fact, manageable is right up there at the top. You understand? So when you have company, they used to call it back in the day, your children don't disgrace you. So all of the things that, African families, and most families, to be fair, kind of want is what Caribbean people want also for their children. But let me explain something about the Black Power movement in the UK and how that impacted on families. So we had a group of people who came over here, let's say in the 50s, early 60s, and had their children here. When the racism that they experienced here, the way they dealt with it was to be as quiet as possible. They didn't want to make any fuss, especially when they had children. They were not going to argue, really. They took it like troopers, right? So, even the offensive literature, they couldn't get somewhere to live, and if they did, it was like very moldy or damp, and, stories like that a lot of Caribbean parents can tell you. When they had their children, however, their children saw what their parents dealt with, and their children said, no way. You understand? that's when the tables turned, because the children decided, I've got rights here and I'm not putting up with what my parents put up with. So while you had this Black Power movement going on, the parents were probably cowering a little bit, thinking, oh God, not my child. You understand? They don't want their children getting mixed up in any rasta and all of that stuff, because they're scared. They were afraid for their children. They want them to finish schools. The schools had a different idea. So a lot of the schools were marking down the black children. They were, labeling some of them educationally substandard, sending them to special schools. The police were locking up black men, sus laws left, right and centre, Brixton riots kicking off. It was all going on. And it was mostly Caribbean people, right? Mostly the children of the Caribbean people that came over here to help to rebuild the country. So when the Africans came in, they came in like on the dust of that warfare that kicked off. So they didn't really get to experience that. So they came now and they saw things seem all right to me. Who are these people complaining about? So me get job. Me just come and me get job. You understand? So for them, it was like, these people are lazy. They don't want to work. They got no education. They're criminals. They're smoking. They're this, they're that. They didn't realize what had gone before that. Do you understand? They didn't get it. So for the people that were here now, when they saw these group of Africans now, they were like, a little divide and rule we can play again. So they're treating them a bit differently because they're now behaving differently. So remember, and this is why I don't even blame the Africans that came here after. I don't really blame them, because they lived under colonialism. So for them, cowing down, and this is the stereotype that a lot of Caribbean people have against Africans, is that the idea that they're coons. So on the one hand, you got these Caribbean people thinking, or the Africans thinking, Caribbeans ain't got no values, and the Caribbeans now are thinking these Africans are coons. Remember, they grew up under colonialism, a lot of them. So for them, remember that they had their identity twisted. You understand? Twisted, like, you guys, our culture is superior to your culture. So you're now looking up to me, as in the, the European, the colonizers. Colonizer had everybody looking up to them. So of course, when the African comes over, now they get to live with the colonizer real time. You understand? So that cowing down thing is nature, is natural for them to do that, because that's how they were raised. But, and this is why I want to say it's a myth, right? And it's unfair to label all Africans in that way. We had some great freedom fighters, African, continentals, real revolutionary writers, real revolutionary musicians, real revolutionary, speakers and advocates. They're Africans. So you can't label them coons, because they're not really coons. You see what I'm saying? They had to survive. They found a way to survive, which is smart. Now, if we were really smart, we would have known that at the time and not started the infighting. But no, some people, it is what it is. But you can't label these people coons, because remember that there are saboteurs even in the Caribbean itself, right? So you have Caribbean coons too. So we need to kind of drop the idea that, a lot of Africans are coons and a lot of black people don't have family values. Yes, they do. Caribbean people have strong family values. But I'll tell you another reason why I think that idea around no family values, where it's come from. There tends to be more single parent Caribbean households than in African households. That's a fact, right? And I would say that is partially due to the social economic situation that exists on both sides of the coin. So if it's very difficult to be a single parent on the continent of Africa, I would say it's very, very difficult. There's no social services for you, right? You're shunned, it's frowned on. The way that single parents used to be frowned on, even in England, and they used to put them in those workhouses, and the shame, you've seen Oliver, right? You understand, you know how it used to be. So over there, it's kind of the same. It's like, it's a bit of a, it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame. But it's a lot easier to be a single parent here. Don't get me wrong, it's never easy to be a single parent. But I think the system is set up in a way that it will support a single parent more, at least allow her to live and get job, because where you get in the job over there, it's very difficult. So that's why it seems like you have more like marriages and families together over on the continent. But in some cases, and if you're real, some of the time anyway, those women are in abusive marriages, emotionally, physically, but they can't get out. And the culture won't allow it either for them to get out. They've made it very difficult to, where's she going to go? But here, it's a lot easier for a woman to escape an abusive relationship, whether emotionally or physically abusive. A woman can leave, find a refuge, get some benefits, still get an education, get a job, have a life, remarry. Do you see what I'm saying? So there are certain more freedoms that are allowed or granted to the people that live here. Ultimately, I think that's one of the main reasons why there's more single parents here in the UK, because if we looked at the Caribbean itself, nah, our parents, you stuck it out, like they stuck it out because again, you kind of had to, you kind of had to stick it out, the systems, that was just the way it was. Is that a good thing? Well, it's good if it allows a person to get away from somebody that's abusing them. But obviously, there are knock-on effects of that. It's a very difficult thing to do. It affects the family income. One salary is less than two salaries coming in. You understand? And that, we have to think about the economics around what is going on socially too, and why we have these ideas about each other that we have. But I think, and I'm really hoping, that we're able to overcome it. I think we can, because ultimately, when you look even at the continent, on the continent, you can come from the same country and still, you don't like another tribe. There's a lot of tribalism. So if you don't even like your neighbor down the road, much more you're going to like this Caribbean, British, mixed up person. And that's another one of the stereotypes, that Caribbean people don't have a culture. Caribbean people have a culture, right? And it's your culture. You just don't see it. You don't notice it. You don't realize it because you've not been there. So we need some, try, Africans, if there are any of my African brothers and sisters watching, try and go to the Caribbean. Try and see your African brothers and sisters. Try and see the way your culture has evolved over time, and on another island, another country. You understand? And my Caribbean brothers and sisters, go to the continent. Go and see the countries. Don't just take other people's word for it. Go and see yourself reflected back and see what you think. Then come back and tell me if there's still any kind of beef. All right? Okay, peace.